For this example, we're going to do a application word problem involving quadratic functions. So the problem says Becca kicked a ball straight up from the ground. The height function is given by f of t equals negative 14t squared plus 53t plus 5. At what time will the ball reach the ground? So it's asking us what time the ball will actually hit the ground. So when the ball hits the ground, you have to remember that the height is going to be 0. So the ground is 0. So because this is height over here, we're going to make this 0. And then it's asking us to solve for time, which makes sense because our variable that we have left is t. So we have to solve for t, which is time. We can solve this using a couple of different methods. We could either use completing the square, or we could use quadratic formula. I'm just going to say let's use quadratic formula because the numbers look a little messy to try and use completing the square on. So if we use quadratic formula, we have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And our a is negative 14, our b is 53, and our c is 5. And now we're just going to substitute those values into our formula. So we'll have x equals negative b is negative 53 plus or minus the square root of b squared is 53 squared minus 4 times a is negative 14 times c is 5 all over 2 times a is negative 14. Okay, now we can go ahead and simplify this. So it'll be x equals negative 53 plus or minus the square root of 53 squared is 2,809 minus, when you multiply 4 times 14 times 5, you get positive 280 all over 2 times negative 14 is negative 28. Okay, now we can simplify underneath the radical. And also because this is a word problem, it makes a little bit more sense to use a decimal. So instead of just simplifying, I'm actually going to plug this into a calculator and simplify. So when you add these together, 2,809 plus 280, you get 9, 8, 10, 3,089 over negative 28. And then when you plug this into a calculator to get a decimal, you get 55.579 all over negative 28. Now, there can only be one answer to this question because the ball can't hit the ground twice. So we have to figure out which one is correct and which one to use. So, if you think about it, this 55 is bigger than 53. So if we take the positive and we subtract 53, we'll get a positive on the top, but we'll get a negative on the denominator, therefore making a negative answer. But if we have a negative on the top and a negative, the negatives will cancel out and we'll get a positive answer. You could work both out and see which one's positive and negative and take the positive one, but just use common sense and you can see that the negative one is the one that we'll need. And when you add negative 55.579 and negative 53 and then divide that by negative 28, you get 3.878 seconds. And it's seconds because the question told us that it was given to us in seconds. So we have to provide the units. And so that's our final answer.